The cold transaction, she saw me as nothing more than a shield she'd bought and paid for. When we signed the agreement, the terms were explicit: no interference in each other's personal lives. The wedding was a grand, hollow spectacle. The Reeds were one of the city's most prominent families, and they knew how to put on a show. I felt like a puppet in an ill-fitting, obscenely expensive tuxedo, moving through the motions of the ceremony. Evelyn maintained a polite, practiced smile the entire time, but the arm she linked through mine was rigid and distant. Our new home was a luxurious penthouse apartment, a gift from her family. After the reception, we returned to that brightly lit but utterly sterile home. Evelyn pointed to a room down the hall on the main floor. "That's your bedroom. I'll be in the master suite upstairs." She kicked off her heels, her bare feet silent on the polished marble floor. Her voice was laced with exhaustion. "Do not come up to the second floor without my permission." "Understood." I nodded, grabbing my simple suitcase and heading into my designated room. It was spacious, with an en-suite bathroom and opulent furnishings, but it felt as cold and impersonal as a hotel suite. This was where I would live for the next 3 years. Parallel lives, hidden currents married life unfolded exactly as the contract stipulated, 2 parallel lines that never intersected. I kept my job as a programmer at a small startup, working 9 to 5, sometimes later. Evelyn ran her art gallery in Chelsea, moving through a world of high society events and endless networking. We lived under the same roof, but we were like strangers who happened to be roommates. If we crossed paths at breakfast, we ate in silence. We rarely ate dinner together. She either had business engagements or ate in her room. She never invited me into her circle of friends, and I was more than happy to have the peace and quiet. On the rare occasions we had to perform for her family, we seamlessly slipped into the roles of a doting, if formal, couple. She would take my arm, her smile warm and gentle, and I would play my part, putting food on her plate and forcing a look of adoration into my eyes. The moment the curtain fell, her hand would drop, and the cold indifference would return. I was aware of the him in her life. Sometimes late at night, I could hear her on the phone upstairs, her voice lowered to a tender, intimate whisper I had never heard her use. Occasionally, I'd find a worn, old photograph on the coffee table, the corners softened from her touch. It was of a handsome man in a crisp white shirt, his smile bright and confident. That was her old flame, Connor Hayes. I felt nothing. In fact, it was almost amusing. The high and mighty Evelyn Reed was, after all, just another person trapped by love. And I dutifully played my part as the tool, collecting the monthly salary she deposited into my account, counting down the days until I could take the $5 million, get my mother into a better hospital, and walk away. If it hadn't been for that one rainy night, we might have continued that way until the contract ended. It was the anniversary of her gallery's opening. She came home completely wasted, dropped off by her assistant. I was about to turn in when I heard the commotion. I found her collapsed on the living room sofa, her face flushed, hair a mess, mumbling incoherently. "Connor, why won't you come back?" I frowned. My first instinct was to call the housekeeper, but she'd already gone to bed. Basic human decency meant I couldn't just leave her there. I walked over and tried to help her up. "Evelyn, go to your room." Her eyes fluttered open, hazy and unfocused. She stared at me for a long moment before recognition dawned. "Leo, it's you." Suddenly, she smiled, a goofy, drunken grin. Her arms snaked around my neck. "Will you carry me upstairs, please?" Her warm body leaned into mine, the scent of alcohol mixing with her expensive perfume to create a strange, intoxicating fragrance. I froze for a second before finally sighing, bending down, and lifting her into my arms. She was light like a languid cat, and she curled against my chest, nuzzling into a comfortable spot. In that moment, something deep inside me, a place I kept locked away, felt a faint feather-light touch. I laid her down on the massive, soft bed in the master suite and turned to leave, but she clutched the hem of my shirt, refusing to let go. "Don't go. Stay with me. I'm so cold. All alone." Her voice was thick with tears, a raw vulnerability that was nothing like the woman I knew. Was it because of him? Because of Connor? Against my better judgment, I stopped. The room was lit only by a single dim lamp on the nightstand. In the soft glow, I could see the glint of tears on her cheeks. I sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. What happened next was a blur of lost control. She kissed me first, a feverish, desperate kiss fueled by alcohol and abandon. I'm no saint. Faced with a beautiful woman, my legal wife, throwing herself at me, my body's response was more honest than my mind. In the darkness, clothes were discarded, and breathing grew heavy. Her actions were clumsy, but passionate, as if she were releasing some long-suppressed emotion, or perhaps just seeking comfort from a ghost. The next morning, sunlight sliced through a gap in the heavy curtains. I woke up first. I looked at Evelyn sleeping beside me, then at the single, stark crimson stain on the sheets. My mind was a tangled mess. Last night felt like an unreal, insane dream. When she woke up, her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to an overwhelming wave of shame and panic. She shot upright, pulling the covers tightly around herself. She stared at me, her eyes a storm of conflicting emotions: anger, helplessness, and something else. A flicker of what looked like recollection. Last night, I was drunk, she said, biting her lip. Her voice was hoarse as she clung to the excuse, a last-ditch effort to salvage her pride. Yeah, I replied calmly, getting up and dressing. I know. I didn't say another word. I just turned and left her room. I knew this was just an accident. Once she was sober, everything would go back to the way it was. An acquired taste, but things didn't go back to the way they were. That accident was a stone tossed into a still lake, and the ripples just kept spreading. Evelyn started acting strange. The way she looked at me was different. She no longer saw an object, a placeholder. Now, there was a searching curiosity in her eyes, and a hint of something she tried to hide. An unmistakable shyness. About a month later, she got drunk again. This time, she was drinking at home. I got back from work to find her sprawled on the living room couch, an empty wine glass in her hand and a half-finished bottle of red on the coffee table. Leo, you're home. She looked at me, her eyes hazy and her cheeks flushed. She held out a hand. I'm so dizzy. Help me. I walked over. I could smell alcohol, but it didn't seem as strong as last time. It was almost like she'd spritzed it on her clothes to create the illusion of being wasted. And the way she was lying there felt performative, a deliberate display of vulnerability. I helped her up, and she leaned her entire weight against me, her soft body pressing into my arm. This time, she didn't murmur Connor's name. She just stared at me with those wide, misty eyes. My room is upstairs, she whispered, the invitation hanging in the air. I understood immediately. The high and mighty Miss Reed, it seemed, had acquired a taste for it. I saw right through her act, but I didn't call her out. She needed an excuse, a way to approach me again without losing face. And I didn't mind playing along. After all, we both had needs. I carried her upstairs, and this time I walked straight into the master bedroom. Everything fell into place, naturally. Compared to the chaotic, fumbling nature of our first time, she seemed much more relaxed, even starting to awkwardly reciprocate. This time, we were both wide awake as we fell into it. In the dark, her responses were bolder, more heated than before, almost exploratory. Afterwards, she curled up in my arms like a contented cat and quickly fell asleep. I looked down at her peaceful face, the proud, cold mask she wore every day now gone, leaving her looking surprisingly innocent. I had to admit, the feeling wasn't bad at all. From then on, getting drunk became her secret signal. Sometimes it was once every couple of weeks, sometimes once a week. Her acting improved, too. Sometimes she would hold wine in her mouth to make the smell on her breath stronger. Other times, she would time her collapse on the couch to coincide perfectly with my arrival from work. Once, she even paraded around in an incredibly sexy and revealing nightgown before succumbing to the effects of the alcohol. I accepted it all. If she needed physical release, and I wasn't opposed to it, then we were both getting what we wanted. Why not? We maintained this unspoken arrangement, remaining cold, contractual spouses by day, while occasionally seeking a fleeting warmth in each other's arms by night. I could feel a subtle shift in Evelyn's attitude toward me. She started paying attention to my preferences. An omelet, the way I liked it, would occasionally appear on the breakfast table. If I worked late, she'd text to ask if she should save me some dinner. One time, when I caught a cold, she silently left a box of medicine outside my bedroom door. She was trying to get closer, yet carefully maintaining her proud exterior. I knew she probably didn't even realize it herself, but she was slowly becoming addicted to the intimacy our physical relationship provided. Maybe even developing feelings for me that went beyond the contract. But I remained perfectly clear-headed. I reminded myself this was just part of the transaction. It was about physical need, not emotion. Her heart belonged to someone else, and all I wanted was my $5 million and my freedom. The Huntresses, the turning point came at her birthday party. Evelyn threw the party at the penthouse. Her friends were all there, a flock of stylish, wealthy socialites. As the husband, my attendance was mandatory. The party was a river of champagne and laughter. Evelyn insisted I stay near her little circle, like a showpiece on display. They chattered about luxury brands, overseas trips, and society gossip. I couldn't contribute, nor did I want to, so I just stood there quietly, sipping my drink. I'm not sure who started it, but the conversation suddenly turned to me. Seriously, Ev, why did you pick Leo? A girl in a sequin dress asked, looking me up and down with a puzzled expression. I mean, he's handsome, but his background. They all knew about Evelyn and Connor. Evelyn was already a little tipsy, a rosy blush on her cheeks. Hearing the question, she let out a slow, drunken giggle and waved her hand dismissively. At first, it was just to handle my family. You know, my heart belongs to Connor. And now, another voice chimed in. It was her friend Chloe, her tone probing. You two seem to be getting along pretty well. Evelyn went quiet for a few seconds, as if trying to form the right words. Then, she leaned in close to them. She lowered her voice, but the alcohol had eroded her self-control. It was still loud enough for me to hear. He's not like Connor. Her cheeks were crimson, her eyes glazed over with a strange mix of embarrassment and a secret, private pride. Connor is. He's the idea, the platonic love you keep in your heart. But Leo, he's. She seemed to struggle with the words, but then, as if throwing caution to the wind, she said in a small but clear voice, he's just really, really good in bed. The sound was quiet, but it landed like a bomb, silencing the small group. Whoa, are you serious? Evelyn, you. Wow. In an instant, their corner of the room erupted in stifled gasps and suggestive laughter. Every single one of them turned to look at me. Their eyes were a mixture of shock, curiosity, and a raw, undisguised interest. Chloe Sullivan's eyes, in particular, lit up like she'd just discovered a new continent. She scanned my body from head to toe, as if evaluating a product's features. After letting the words slip, Evelyn seemed to realize her mistake and slapped a hand over her mouth. But I didn't miss the flicker of pride and satisfaction in her eyes. She probably thought it was just harmless, private girl talk. I paused, the champagne flute halfway to my lips, and let out a silent, cold laugh. Well done, Evelyn. You just throw me to the wolves. She had no idea what kind of ripple effect that one sentence would create. From that night on, my easy life began. Chloe, the boldest and richest of the group, whose family was in real estate, made the first move. She started by feigning interest in investing in my small startup, constantly setting up meetings to discuss collaboration. Alone with me in a conference room, she'd wear a low-cut dress, leaning forward to offer an unobstructed view, her words dripping with insinuation. Leo, whatever Evelyn is giving you, I can give you more. Her fingers, tipped with bright red nail polish, lightly traced the back of my hand. I pull my hand back without changing my expression. Chloe, please have some self-respect. Her rejection only fueled her determination. She became more direct, sending expensive gifts, waiting for me outside my office, and, at one corporate event, she deliberately cornered me on an empty balcony and tried to kiss me. I push her away again, my voice now cold. I'm not interested. Undeterred, she pressed closer, her body almost flush against mine, her perfume thick in the air. Leo, we're all adults here, she whispered, her lips near my ear. Evelyn has someone else on her mind. She probably doesn't even know how to appreciate you. But I'm different. I want to experience it for myself. Can I? Her directness was exactly what I expected. I looked at the undisguised lust in her eyes and laughed internally. Oh, Evelyn, you really dug this hole for yourself. Under Chloe's relentless pursuit, I finally gave in. On one hand, she was undeniably a bombshell, and I had no reason to play the saint when an experience was offered up on a silver platter. On the other hand, a dark, malicious thought had started to grow in my mind. After all, Clause 4 of our agreement, the one about non-interference in each other's romantic lives, was written by Evelyn herself. So, one weekend, while Evelyn was visiting her parents, Chloe got the experience she was looking for. It turned out Evelyn's review was not an exaggeration. Chloe's satisfaction was written all over her face. She acted like she'd just confirmed a fantastic legend and couldn't wait to share her findings. The news spread like wildfire. Megan was next. Her method was more subtle, and in some ways, more difficult to deal with. She started texting me constantly under the guise of asking for help with programming problems. She would send ambiguous messages late at night, accompanied by lazy selfies of herself in silk robes. Leo, this line of code is so hard. Can you help me? The attached photo, however, was clearly not focused on the code. I usually left her on read or replied hours later with a simple K or find a tutorial. But Megan's patience was astounding. She even found out which hospital my mother was in and visited as Evelyn's best friend, acting sweet and caring in front of my mom. trying to win me over through a flanking maneuver. Eventually, through a mix of persistence and opportunity, she got what she wanted. Then came the other women from Evelyn's circle. The most absurd was a model named Jenna Monroe, who had a killer body and an even bolder attitude. After one party, she followed me down to the parking garage. The moment I unlocked my car, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, pressing her body tightly against mine and breathing warmly in my ear. "Come on, Leo. Give me a chance. Just once. I want to see for myself just how good you are." These women were like cats that had caught the scent of cream, one after another. I reveled in their admiring gazes, in the raw physical pleasure, and most of all, in the perverse satisfaction of turning Evelyn's drunken boast into a public secret, making her a laughingstock without her even knowing it. But I couldn't deny it. Being pursued by so many beautiful women was an incredible ego boost. For while there, life was pretty damn good.